see, my friends, carnality will need a middleman all the time. You see, that middleman is the one or the thing that claims to come between you and God. You see, whether it is another human, whether it is an activity, whether it is a Bible or scripture, anything. You see, when a couple is married, man and a woman, when their eyes go off each other and go on to other things, it brings dissension. It brings a break in the flow of the relationship. You see, but anything that leads you back to looking at the other person, then it's not a middleman anymore, because it's always reminding you that you need to look at the other one. You see? So this is what it is. If you're using the scripture and it's not taking you to Jesus Christ, then it's you're following the scripture from your own mindset. You're following the scripture according to the doctrines and traditions of men. You see? But if you're reading the scripture and it's taking you more and more to Jesus Christ, then there's nothing wrong with that. You see, if you're listening to a human being and that human being is telling you you need to look at them or you need to hear from them, there's something wrong with that, because they're telling you need them in order to hear from God, and you don't. The human being becomes zero. Humans and never preach themselves. You see, because if you preach yourself, everybody's flesh will receive you. You see, that's the danger. So you never preach yourself, you preach Christ. And in order to preach Christ, you have to die to yourself. You need to be crucified. You see, you don't want people to follow you around. You're not the leader. There is no leader here except Jesus. Humans were not created to be leaders. Humans were created to be followers. A great general in an army, when the soldiers start doubting down at the lower levels, he goes there to give them a pep talk and tell them certain things, or maybe fight in the front line with them. Why? Because he's showing them that he believes and follows the principles more than them, so they derive faith from that. See, it's a greater follower. So he's not testifying of himself, he's testifying of his beliefs. You see, so we need to testify of the one we follow, which is Jesus Christ. You see, now if we are not following him, if we have no relationship with him, if we don't know him, then we can't testify about him. You see, we then start testifying of other things using his name. You see, we start reading scriptures, we start saying Jesus this and Jesus that, but at the end of it, the Spirit is not behind our words. You see, the Spirit of God. And we now start leading people to us, to the doctrines of men. Someone will ask, oh, where did you get that interpretation from? And then he'll say, oh, well, so and so's blah blah concordance or whatever. You see, but the truth is, my friends, the Spirit of God has to lead us through everything, through the scriptures. Many times I've been given scripture, but it's the Spirit of God that gave me that scripture. But at the same time, many times the Spirit of God has told me things that were not in scripture about my life, what I need to do, where I need to go. It's given me dreams and visions about certain things in life, in this world, you see, that are true. You see, so it's funny to me, because people will say, well, they believe in the Bible. You're not supposed to believe in the Bible. You're supposed to believe in Jesus Christ, you see, and follow him, because the Bible doesn't testify of itself. It testifies of Jesus Christ. You see, the Bible can be interpreted anyhow. Satan says, use Psalm 91, for you give his angels charge over you. You see, people think when Jesus say it is written, it's just written in there was no Bible for it to be written in back then. It's written in heaven. It was written in heaven, and it was written in him, in his heart, spiritually, before it was ever written anywhere physically. We become the canvas of God's finger. You see, spiritually, He writes inside our hearts and minds His commandments, His ways, His thoughts, His ideas, His directions. You see, now we have to enter that spiritual state. You see, many people will use all kinds of words. They say, oh, he hears voices. Well, they said the same thing to Jesus Christ. You know, He does it by Beelzebub. He does it by this. He does it by that. They said there's similar things to the disciples. You see? So, you are going to hear from the voice of the Spirit of God, which is not tangible. And it alienates you from the way the world does. See, the world claims to have proof. You see, empirical methods where, you know, you show me a proof. But their methods are temporary. 1 minute science will say this, the next minute it will be proven wrong. 1 minute the industrial era claimed all these different successes. They claimed all their inventions as successes. Today the same science realm is calling them failures because they are polluting the environment, they're doing this, they're doing that. It's not me who said it, it's them who's saying it, not me. You see? 1 minute this is a cure, the next minute it's not. 1 minute chocolate is good for you, the next minute it's not. You see? So who defines whether something is good or bad? It's supposed to be wisdom. And who is that wisdom? Wisdom is Jesus Christ. Wisdom knows the times and the seasons. So if you go to Jesus, you see, the problem is people want to go to all these other places because they don't know Jesus. They don't know Him, they don't ask Him, they don't make Him a part of everything. If I see something that goes on in maybe the science realm, I take it to Jesus. Lord, how do you see this? Everything that I see and hear is filtered through the Spirit of God. It's submitted. See? And that's what people don't understand. You see? That everything has to become captive. They don't have a relationship with Jesus. They think that it's a compartmentalized thing. Jesus here, and when I open the Bible it's Jesus, and then everything else it's I'm going to fight against the New World Order using this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to stand up for my rights, I'm going to go in, and they forgot to take Jesus over there. These things will be brought up on the day of judgment. You see? All these things. You cannot put Jesus Christ inside a book. By the way, that book never existed back then. You see? There were scriptures. And the scriptures they had was the books of the Old Testament that prophesied of Jesus. You see? You think Paul had the book of Revelation to read? No, my friends. It goes beyond reading with your physical eyes. You see, it goes beyond hearing with your physical ears. You've got to begin to read and hear and understand the Spirit of God. That's what you have to do. Because we do that with other human beings. We do that even with dogs, some of us. My friends, this relationship that we have is a living one. The reason why we don't want Jesus in our hearts is because it's the hardest thing to do. Because then you can't do what everybody is doing. You can't trust in all these other things. You've got to become foolishness to the world then. You see? You will convict the ways of the world of sin, righteousness and judgment. And they will call you foolish. But we want recognition of the world. You see? We want to make the gospel of Jesus Christ subservient to our political agenda, to our social agenda, to our academic minds, to our intellectual theories or our intellectual knowledge. You see, we want to define Jesus Christ because of our knowledge of Hebrew or our knowledge of this or our knowledge of that, because we have found some proof that we can see with our physical eyes, so this therefore proves God. My friend, this is a lie. It's God who will prove Himself to you, but you have to do what He wants you to do. You have to become obedient to Him. You have to keep His commandments. You have to follow certain rules He tells you to follow. And you have to want Him from your heart. This is the most important thing. You see? Not all these other things, extra extra, not even extras. We need to do the primary thing, which is spend time with Jesus Christ. Spend time with Jesus Christ from an honest place in our heart, from a true place, not in all these superficial masks that we live in our heart, but from the honest place. No one wants to go there, because then they will expose themselves of who they are. And we want to live in the lie. We've got to expose ourselves that I'm a wreck. I need you, Lord, help me. Forgive me of. Then we can ask Him for true, and we become genuine, and we ask Him truly. And that's what Jesus wants, is for us to talk to Him and bring Him to the depth of our heart, my friends. Not these superficial games where we've outsourced a relationship with Jesus for reading a scriptures and all these other things, and we don't do the more. Imagine doing that to your wife and you're the husband, or the other way around. You're reading a book someone wrote about your spouse, and they're right in front of you. You don't want to know them.